Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Willkommen.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome to session number 6/7, depending upon your point of view.
I think it's just 6.
It's 6, but we put it out there as session 7. Somebody put it out there as session 7 on the thumbnail.
Well, weren't we just continuing the number?
Well, considering that session, the first session 6 turned out to be an emergency meeting.
Well, because the thumbnail never got updated. Where's that producer of ours? Oh wait,
don't look at me. I'm not the one that makes the thumbnails. Not on this series.
Our unproducing producer. Sean is in the room.
Everything that's going on with the Jira life, though. I think he's busy enough.
Sean, you made it. I was worried he was going to get on a plane that was missing its wheels.
Yeah, only a few, I'm sure.
Just the 2 that you need to land, I suppose.
Sarah's ready for a fight again.
I know.
It might happen. It depends if we don't keep these 2 in line. But
all right, engine. Apparently, the engine was missing some stuff.
Don't you hate it when your engine is just missing stuff on a critical piece of machinery?
Yeah, when you're trying to fly, I guess it's a good idea for it to have all the pieces. All right, folks, let's jump into it, Ronnie. Quick reminder, or just a recap, our summer camp was a smashing success. We had like 70 people show up. It was awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.
So how many people are going to show up for the Atlassian Builder Summit?
Yeah, so right now we're at 118 registered attendees. And so if other people would help co-sponsor or co-host, we might get to our goals a little bit quicker. But we're getting there.
already co-hosting.
I'm trying to get ATL to wake up, but they haven't responded to me.
Don't look at me. I don't have anything to do with that one.
I pinged one of our main headlining sponsors, and we're waiting.
Yep.
Okay.
So for everyone who is catching up, may have missed last Wednesday, we ended up not doing a study session because big news came out, so we kind of had to take care of the big news. So that's what it is. We are moving forward, and the thumbnail says session 7. Internally, we are thinking of it as session 6, and numbers don't mean anything anymore.
Correct.
That's true.
Yeah, because we're doing part 1 of JSM, project administration.
Yep.
So we're actually on to a new, I would say, learning path. There are a couple of learning paths that we're going through. The first was the exam prep, and this one is just an exploration of the core features of JSM.
Yep. So by the end of this lesson, we'll be able to identify the main features of JSM and describe the capabilities of said JSM. Sarah, you going to read for us today, or?
Sure thing. But I'm giggling because I put a mint in my mouth as if everybody could smell my breath. So just so you know, if you have smell-o-vision, I'm all good.
I've got a handy bag of gummy bears right here, so no comments.
All right. We're going to start off with categorizing your work with work types. And it looks like this did get updated, right? So no longer calling them issue types, work types. So work types classify and track the different kinds of work that a team does in company-managed service projects. These can be used to represent anything from a customer request to an internal task. Request types organize and define requests. Jira Service Management provides a set of default work types and request types configured for basic ITSM company-managed project use cases. Team-managed projects only use request types. And this is written to be read, not out loud.
Yeah.
Well, let's get the issue type correct.
All right.
They got it so correct. They wanted us to know they got it right. So they highlighted it.
Indeed.
Don't worry, Atlassian is still figuring it out. I was at the Friday event. I was under my breath every time somebody said issue types. I'm like, work types, work
Yes.
types.
Yes. Those
So,
little mental swaps.
Jumping back into the topic, the important thing about JSM is that not only do you have the work types, but each work type can be mapped to one or more request types. And request types are the customer facing parts of your service management system. So
Yes. And a request type. Yeah. You can have more than one request type per work type, which I'm sure we'll learn as we go. But for me personally, it's like everything I wanted Jira to do that JSM can do. Like I want to reconfigure. I want a story, but I want to reconfigure it with different fields for different needs. And then we can argue
your
about that another
users,
day.
for example, and they're not going to see the tasks that you would see as an agent within JSM. They're going to see something like change password or fix laptop or something like along those lines. And all those would map onto a work type called a task.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, or
Unless
or
you're
different
dealing
work
with team managed projects, and then things get weird.
types. Exactly. All
And
right.
that's
So
why
I'll
we don't have to
continue.
manage projects.
So in these company managed projects, the work types give requests their foundational features, such as their fields and workflow statuses. For example, some work types include incident, problem, change, post-incident review, service request, and service request with approvals. Only Jira admins can create new work types. They can also edit or delete work types. For example, the incident work type can include unique fields like impacted, affected hardware, and urgency to help teams understand and prioritize the work item. The supporting workflow can have statuses like escalate, contact vendor to streamline resolution and ensure prompt communication and action. So then here are some of those default work types in Jira Service Management.
And I wonder if Rodney clicks on it, it'll blow up and show everything.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, look at that.
So one thing that was noted above, and that is probably or likely to be important to you as you take this, is again that understanding. What can our app admins do? And what can our space admins do? So using the new vernacular, so what can those product admins do and what can those project admins do? So what's really nice is as that space or project admin, you do have the ability to create those additional work types on top of your work item, your issue types. But if you need another one, and you might need another one because you need another workflow, then that's where you have to go reach out to your app admin for that. And while we're on this graphic here, something that makes me frankly a little crazy is that system in brackets before each one of these, but that's a good way to know that, hey, that's just kind of one of those default work item types that you get when you spin up one of these JSM projects.
Right. Or once you've spun it up and you click on enabling a specific feature like incident management or change management or service request management.
Indeed. So here, the most common ones are the ones that were mentioned in that narrative before that. So a change, an incident, a post-incident review, a service request with approvals, and ask a question. And so then here again, I was just mentioning about like work item types and workflows, and those things are married. And so that's how we end up with those two different service requests, because if you need an approval, then that's going to affect your workflow.
And I would almost guarantee this list of the common ITSM work item types is going to appear somewhere. either as a part of a question as background knowledge or question on the topic itself.
Well, remember we had that example one, right, where we needed to be able to create a queue off of it, and so it was the post-incident review, because that is a type, so you can use that in a JQL and create filters for it.
Yep.
All right, so those request types that we build on top of our work types. In both company managed and team managed projects, request types give the request their specific settings, such as naming and portal customization. For example, some request types include request a new account, report broken hardware, and get a guest Wi-Fi account. Project, aka space, admins can create new request types. They can also edit or delete existing request types. So here again is one of those differences that gives the admins of the project/spaces a lot more power. So here are some of the default request types in Jira Service Management.
Boom.
So here we go. We've got our change requests, our employee offboarding, employee onboarding, employee transfer, give kudos. Looks like we're working in an HR project in here.
Yep.
In fact, we see at the top, project/human resources/project settings, as well as over here in the sidebar.
Yeah, and you know, so those are those request types, and then those items like we were just mentioning, change request. In this case, with the HR project, it created a new work item type called an employee offboarding and an employee onboarding. But then we see the system service request with approvals, right? Because that would be a more common style that could go across many different kinds of your JSM or ESM, enterprise service management projects. So a work type can have multiple associated request types, but a request type can only be associated with a single work type.
So it's one work type to 1 to n request types, but a request type can only have a 1-to-1 mapping with a work type.
Yep.
I have fun graphics in the class I teach on this. Fun for me. Hopefully understandable by everybody else. All right, so then we've got some more examples of work types and request types. So an incident work type can include multiple request types, such as report a system outage, report broken hardware, report security breach. So because there could be different kinds of things that are happening, not one size fits all. And a service request type for a support team can include request types such as order a new MacBook, order a new Dell laptop, order a new monitor. And I suppose we could get into a debate here about whether or not you would really need request types for order a new MacBook or order a new Dell laptop, but it doesn't matter because for the test, for the exam, it's just understanding that, yeah, you could, if you have a use case for that, create 2 of those work types off of those, you know, service request work items.
So I think I want to point out something. I think the argument is not that should order a new MacBook or order a new Dell laptop should be request types. It's that I'm thinking if I'm reading Sarah right, because this is what I would do, I would map them to service request with approval.
I would do that too often. But you could also have a drop down, right, that says, hey, what kind of laptop do you want, a MacBook or a Dell? And so for me, having 2 different service requests on that feels like overkill, but it all depends upon how you slice and dice things. That's one thing we know about Jira, the infinite configurability of it to match whatever use cases you have. All right, and this is relatively new with the ability to enable similar requests feature. So, sorry, that's a feature called similar requests. It adds a panel on every work item linking to another, similar requests, problems, incidents, and more. This can help agents see how the team has addressed a similar work item in the past. So here again, we're talking about like when you go out to your issue detail or your work item details, you're going to start to see a lot more panels in there, all with the intent to help you get to resolution the fastest. And so Atlassian and Jira is prompting you more and more and more to go out and find the data for those related things. And so that you can quickly link those items. You can check out what happened in the past and predict what you can do in the future.
Gee, we've always had these same tickets come in for change of field.
Indeed. How did you say no last time?
Esperanto.
All right. So speaking of those, request type is based on a work item issue type is tied to a workflow. So we're going to define our business processes with those workflows. All tickets transition through different stages of work from creation to completion, and the path that takes is called our workflow. Each workflow contains statuses, the steps that describe the state of the task, and transitions, or how the work moves between the tasks. A work item moves through these during its life cycle, and this represents the work processes within an organization. For example, you could have a simple to-do in progress done. Also, you could have a open, triage, waiting for assignment, assigned. You could go crazy, in progress, in review, to do, ain't gonna do it.
Reopen.
Sorry?
I like the reopen one. That's my favorite status.
Yes, and always the reopen status.
And don't forget, we need a canceled versus a closed.
Yes. And I need it.
I like
Go
the
ahead.
closed and resolve one that Atlassian ships with by default. I can never explain to anyone why those two exist.
But sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, I was only going to say, and it's canceled one L or two. You get them both when you spin up projects.
Yes. The answer is it one
Yeah.
L or two? Yes.
Yes.
The answer is just yes.
But these are the same workflows that if you were with us for the Jira admin exam or the project admin exam, you should already be familiar with these. If you've been a Jira admin for more than 2 weeks, you should have some ideas about workflows. These haven't really changed too much from what we've experienced before. There's some things you could do specifically, especially with like post functions and conditions validators here that are specific to JSM projects, but it is still... Sarah, I see a finger.
And I would say you could if you're that app admin, but as a project admin, you can only ask to have that done.
Yep.
Unless team managed.
Oh, God. You're so right. And I just refuse to hear that.
I know TGL's official stance, thanks to Alex, is team managed projects should not exist. But unfortunately, we don't get the final say, and Alex is muted.
But we live in that world, don't we?
I still can't believe you guys didn't tell me that Dave Meyer was like the creator of team managed projects, and here I am bashing team managed.
We didn't know, and let's add one more point. Although this is not going to be on this exam, but one thing that you should know is that one thing regarding workflows that JSM is different than Jira itself is that there are workflows right now in JSM that allow for approvals.
Mm-hmm.
And those approvals, you can set up the approver as even a customer. The approver does not need to be an agent. So this is a little out of scope because setting up all of this is for the Jira admin, the product admin, and not for the space admin or the project admin doing, doing all of the stuff in the 420, but it is kind of a nice difference that maybe someday soon we'll see that difference kind of closed. But
I'll also just add real quickly that you have to apply the workflow to a JSM project first before you get the approval functionality.
Oh God, isn't that the worst? Yes.
You just try to do it. Jira can't you can't read your mind yet.
Yep.
I know. but
Again, out of the scope, this is not going to be on your 420 exam.
don't.
Yep.
Correct. All right. Well, how do we stay informed? We do it with notifications. So notifications send, that reads weird. Notifications send for events like a change in the status of a ticket. Notifications enable teams and customers to stay on top of relevant events occurring in Jira Service Management, allowing them to act quickly. Various events can trigger a notification. For example, a notification can trigger when a request is submitted, an approval is needed, a comment is added, or a ticket is resolved. And then down below, we'll find an example of a notification that a team member received after a request was submitted. So again, one of our biggest difference between Jira and JSM is that ability to communicate back and forth with customers, is that ability to update folks who don't have licenses and product access into the Atlassian product. They have an account, but it's not a paid for account. And sometimes they don't even need accounts, but in order for this kind of communication and notifications to go out, that's how we do it.
Right. And so in JSM, in the JSM project, there is a separate setting for explicit customer notifications for things like, comment added or, status change that would send that email out to the customer.
And that you can, again, hopefully we'll come against this later, but you can customize those notifications as a space admin.
You can,
but doing so does it
even
for
down
the
to like the
whole
format
space.
of, even down to what the body is, what the body says,
Yeah,
what the email body says.
without
No.
automation.
One thing JSM specifically lets you do that you can't do in just normal Jira is specify the from address for these notifications from the portal,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is probably going to be mentioned just as I scroll down.
Maybe we haven't really talked about email yet, but yeah, definitely possibilities in there. Nope, it is going to talk about triage. So here again is one of those areas where Atlassian's doing some of the work, right? Some of the bots behind the scenes can help you out with triaging. This might not be exactly that topic, but this is the idea of, hey, when all those requests come in, what do we do with them? How do we find them? In Jira, we commonly refer to filters to do that. So our queues are going to be like those filters, but sometimes a little bit more specific in their scoping. So let's read about that. Customer requests become work items that you can view and work on in queues. Jira Service Management comes with default queues that the project admin can update to automatically triage work items for your team. You can see how many work items are in each queue and switch between queues to work on the right items at the right time. For example, the HR team has queues to organize employee onboarding requests, questions for HR, and more. And then down below, we will see an example of that. And then you might be asking yourself, queues are awesome, but I work in more than one JSM project. Can I see all of my JSM work items in a queue? No. If they go across projects, you cannot. Those queues are project specific.
But that's where you now make a filter, right?
You could use a filter, but a filter is not a queue.
It is not. I mean, that's why they're very close.
They're very close.
But that would be one major differentiator between one or the other.
Not to mention a filter. If you were to multi-select here in your queue, your filter will not have the same options for like quick actions that a JSM queue will have, because the JSM queues are going to give you the option to to comment publicly or internally. They're going to give you an option to triage tickets. It's going to give you options to approve items. So it's all of that JSM functionality you can access through a queue, but not through a filter.
What is your favorite way to triage a ticket?
Delete it.
I mean, that's definitely one way. Now, I like to have a queue specifically looking for specific reporters that are my VIPs. This is like the CEO, the VPs, the C-suite, and have a queue specifically for those. So when I get one of those tickets in, I go, okay, maybe this deserves priority because bad things could happen otherwise.
Yes. Yeah, and that's your priority queue then, right? Like even just
Exactly.
that you can, and this is why that ability to use the JQL, you can create as many of these as you want. You can create so many that you don't know what's what. It doesn't matter. There's no limit to my knowledge, but there might be if we ever do our show called Break Jira, maybe we will find what that limit is.
We're slowly developing a massive list of all the ways we want to break Jira.
Yes.
All right. One thing that I want to kind of circle back that we have talked before when talking about queues is that now in JSM, you can organize queues into priority groups within your project. And so that might be something that you want to look at doing just to separate the high priority items from high priority items in your urgent queues from the regular requests in a separate priority group.
Yeah, it's almost another way I'm thinking about this too. Almost like not entirely. I'm going to keep caveating what I'm about to say here, but because on like your boards in Jira, right? You got your quick your quick filters. Queues don't really have quick filters. I think they're starting to get more filters, but I can't. I'm struggling to right now think that they have quick filters. So that's where another good place where your queues come into use, right? So you could have your different levels of priority queues. And then within that, imagine if I needed a quick filter to show this data, what would I do? You could have it created as another queue by that admin.
And you also want to separate your queues out from having an idea of like which work items are in danger of breaching your SLA. So you can have a separate queue for that. Which ones are recently created, and you could have a general all open and organize all of that together into a single priority group.
Yeah, we're slipping into like a little bit of the, hey, if I was doing this, what would I do? But I love that, right? Because it could be by persona, right? By who the user is. And then it could be by who the customer is. So many ways. All right. Okay, and speaking of, if you're nearing breaching an SLA, well, what the heck are those SLAs? And maybe how could I use them for my VIP customers? So our SLA is a service level agreement. It refers to a commitment made between a service provider and its customers regarding the level of service and support that will be provided. Project admins can define SLAs by outlining precise targets, expectations, and responsibilities. These SLA help teams prioritize which requests need to be resolved first and the time frame to complete them. For example, the IT department has an agreement with customers that the time for the first response for a high priority ticket submitted on a weekday is 30 minutes. So again, take away that very specific use case. A lot of this you can do with JQL. Again, if you can do it with JQL, you can probably set up an SLA for it. So this is high priority. We're keying off that. Is it a weekday or not? We're keying off of that and telling it you've got 30 minutes to get there, people. So here's how they appear in the queue. And each work item shows the date and time it should be resolved. So out of the box, and I don't know if this is a question yet, but I feel like out of the box, usually we have that TTFR, time to first response, and then TTR, or time to resolution. And then you can go crazy, folks, creating as many as you want with a really nifty add-in now that allows you to have one of your JQLs in there, right? So here's this group of tickets, but you can have different SLAs based on the priority and create those all nice and tidy. I like that.
And something that we actually should do like a correction. When we talked about this before, we were thinking that you would go through the SLAs one at a time, and that's not true. I think Sarah was right before hashtag. I believe Sarah or Rodney was right, where you actually go through the SLAs all at the same time, but within the individual SLAs there are goals, and it will traverse the goal, one goal after another, until it finds the goal that matches the specific condition that you're looking for. So that's something to know when you're dealing with SLAs, is that if you have multiple SLAs, the issues are all gonna go against the SLAs all at the same time. But within an individual SLA, it's gonna look at specific goals and how whether or not this goal lining up against a specific calendar, whether or not it meets in that condition.
Yeah.
Very similar observation that I've made is that your SLA will also not show up until the trigger or the starter triggers it. So it is possible for you to have like a status of to do and not have SLAs, but the moment you move something to in progress, then you get more SLAs that show up.
Yep, all based on that trigger. Yeah.
And then again, those don't start until they actually get triggered.
Yep.
And your project space admins are the ones who are setting up those SLAs.
Yep.
And if you change an SLA and you save it all, and then you go out to your tickets and I'm going to test all my excellent work and it doesn't show up, go grab a coffee, come back, and then check it again. I don't know if that's part of the test, but it is a great big warning that always says if you change your SLAs, might take a while to go out and update everything.
If your JSM project has a significant amount of work items, you might want to grab several cups of coffee.
Yes.
And I'll also add that you are limited to only the things that JSM allows you to do with respect to how you start and stop and end your SLAs. I think a lot of people try to do like custom fields or something, and I'm like, no, you gotta kind of follow what's available in there.
All right, so we only have one question.
Dun dun dun. Work types. I don't even know the question, but it's work types.
Alex is wrong. I have the answer.
I haven't read the question.
So reading it out.
I just ran with the question with my gut.
Gemma wants her team to receive an alert anytime they're assigned a ticket. What service project feature can she use to achieve this?
Oh, definitely not work types.
Work types, SLAs, queues, or notifications?
Well, and I'm going to take issue with this question because this would not fit because it uses the word alert. And alert is a different thing, but
it's the certification SMEs that are, Ree would be proud.
Thank you. I'm learning.
Open.
But by the same token, they couldn't say receive a notice.
Notifications then.
My guess is notifications. It's not really much of a guess. And it's correct.
Hashtag Rodney doesn't have to guess.
Sometimes Rodney guesses. Ronnie is a very good guesser, though.
Wow, it's 34 minutes into a 5-minute section.
Mm.
On to the next 20-minute section.
Oh, I wanted to answer all the questions at the bottom.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Wow.
that's okay. Maybe next time. They're kind of fun, right? Like, what are the main use cases for Jira Service Management? To
'Cause you can't
provide a
afford-
way for your internal and external customers to get in touch with you and request help.
Because you couldn't afford service now, so you went with JSM.
I think the answers are actually the subsequent bullet points. So
All right. Yeah, like maybe they should be indented. Okay,
They
we'll
should
go to
be.
the next.
moving to the next lesson, which is all of the different use cases for Jira Service Management.
Hey, so we're going to answer that question right now.
All right.
I'll go faster. What are the main use cases for Jira Service Management? As a Jira Service Project admin, you ensure your organization IT services run smoothly and efficiently. To do this, you should understand how Jira Service Management can be applied to various service management scenarios. Here are the main use cases we'll explore: service request management, incident management, problem management, change management, knowledge management, asset and configuration management. And if you call now, we might throw in virtual agent management. Just kidding.
So those of you that have been brought up in ITIL, specifically the older version of ITIL 3, might recognize each one of those managements as a specific quote unquote book, because the L in ITIL stands for library. It's basically meant to be kind of a collection of best practices, and ITIL 4 is kind of turned it on its head a little bit, because they're starting to introduce how do you do this in an agile manner. So
Now, while these are the main use cases, these aren't the only use cases. I feel important to note that if you have any situation where you are an internal team and you're taking work from an external source, even that's internal to the company or not, it's external to your team, you could use service management.
That's my favorite thing. Because, yeah, I know, it should say ESM. All right, service request management. It is a practice that helps organizations standardize their responses, coordination, and fulfillment of service requests from users. For example, service requests include asking for new software, access to a particular system, or general information. And request fulfillment is the process of resolving a customer or employee's service request through its entire life cycle. The service desk is the primary contact point where customers ask for help or request services, and this is also known as the customer portal. So I feel like all those idle terms are being highlighted, yeah?
Yeah.
And the process includes a customer, internal or external request help from your service portal or via email. For example, a new employee needs access to a specific software license to do their job. The service team assesses the request using defined approval and qualification processes. If needed, they send the request for approval. Then a service desk agent fulfills the service request or moves the request to someone who can better assist the customer. Jira Service Management allows you to easily move requests between different team projects or create linked worked items between projects. And by the way, when we say team project here, we just mean a project that is dedicated to a team and not necessarily a team managed project. And then after resolving the request, the agent closes the ticket and consults the customer to make sure they're satisfied by collecting customer feedback. Here's an example of that process. So just graphically displaying what we just said.
And it's almost like this is some sort of flow that work travels through.
Is it?
Is that a workflow?
In a way. It's a process.
Very abstract way, yeah.
yeah.
Can you imagine if we had to build workflows like this? Like with
No.
pictures?
No, I can't. I refuse to.
You refuse?
We will next year. What kidding, folks. What are other types
You heard
of
it here
service-
first.
Let's just stop using words. It won't matter if it's a space or a project. It's just
I know
going to be
you're gonna
graphic.
prompt
Right.
Jira, make me a workflow that does this, this, and this.
They're going to be the things formerly known as. They're just going to be like prints. All right. What are other types of service request management? I'm so glad you asked. It's enterprise service management and customer service management fall under service request management umbrella. I didn't read that very well, but we're not going back. So what are we talking about here, friends? And we're talking about what Bob was just mentioning. That enterprise service management extends IT service management processes and tools across an organization to all teams. If you do any kind of, hey, somebody needs me to do something for them, you fall under that ESM umbrella. It defines operational best practices for both internal teams and their customers while removing organizational silos. Common non-technical teams that embrace ESM include HR, facilities, legal, marketing, and customer service. And then our customer service management delivers great service experiences to your external customers. JSM has a customer service management template that is designed specifically for external support. Customer service teams can set SLAs, answer customer questions, prioritize requests, and collect feedback using this template. This ensures customers and business partners quickly get the help they need. So all a long way of saying, yep, you can help people internally, and you could open up your portals, open up your system so that anybody out there who you consider a customer can get in touch with you.
I remember once upon a time where even the concept of putting your Jira on the open internet was terrifying.
Right. At some level, I think it still is.
I mean, if you have data center and you see those monthly security bulletins, yeah.
Indeed.
It's been a while since we've done a security bulletin for Confluence or Jira.
They come out every month still.
Mm-hmm.
Where have we been for the last year?
Well,
On the
none of
cloud.
them have been like, tens or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
Sarah, talk about
Yes.
incident management, please.
I would love to tell you about that because it's the practice of responding to an unplanned event, like Alex just jumping in talking about security bulletins. It could be a service interruption, which also could be impacted by a security bulletin. But it's also about restoring the service to its operational state. So there's two levels. There are incidents, which is an unplanned interruption to service or reduction in the service quality. And then there are major incidents, an incident with significant business impact requiring an immediate coordinated resolution.
Sarah, you'll be proud that my talk on Friday included major incidents.
Yes.
For 45 minutes.
I hope the whole class is doing it. And then a problem is the not yet known root cause behind one or more incidents. Jira Service Management provides all of the context and data you need to resolve an incident quickly and efficiently. Agents can easily manage work items and user-reported incidents and quickly escalate major incidents as an alert to the on-call team to resolve them. Here's those places you're going to find those features. Hey, similar incidents. Lots of people look like they're using some of those same keywords and reports right now. Let's gather them all up. Let's tag one of them as a major incident so that we can start coordinating all of the communication across them. So the incident management process means that once you've identified, categorized, and prioritized an incident, you'll follow this process to management. 1, initial diagnosis. 2, escalate if necessary. 3, communicate updates. 4, investigation and diagnosis. 5, resolution and recovery. 6, closure.
I take offense to this immediately.
Tell me more.
I don't think step 3 should be a step. It should be a separate line item that happens the entire time.
You're not wrong, friend.
True. In fact,
When
that's-
I've set up incident response processes, I've set up a dedicated communications officer, and that's what I called them.
Mhm.
And their job is to handle all that craziness so the people are trying to fix the issue can focus on fixing the issue.
Rodney's read the SRE Bible, which details out that on your incident response teams, you have a dedicated guy whose or gal whose job is to communicate out to stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Or you
Which
just
is
have
another
AI do
goal.
it for you.
What was that, Alex?
I said, or you just have AI do it for you. You build an agent.
You will. You will.
Unless it's the AI that's got the
On the fronts.
And then what you do?
well, if you're Sarah, you read the expanded parts of each of those.
Yes. So for our initial diagnosis, the DevOps teams typically manage an incident from diagnosis to resolution. Multi-tier service desks may have a frontline team that attempts this. When needed, they can escalate to second or third level support teams. And if that escalation is necessary, then hey, look at that. The next team takes the data and continues with the diagnosis process. If this team can't diagnose the incident, it escalates to the next team. So it's a bunch of you. Someone figure this out.
And then it somehow winds up to the people who picked it up to start with.
Right. So the communication part, which is part 1.1, 2.2, 4.1, the team regularly shares updates with affected internal and external shareholders. And we do our investigation and diagnosis. So that continues until a solution to the incident is identified. Sometimes teams bring in outside resources or other department members to consult and assist with the resolution. And the team arrives at a solution. Woohoo! They perform the necessary steps to resolve the incident. Recovery implies the effort it may take for service to be fully restored, since some fixes, like bug patches, etc., may require testing and deployment even after the proper resolution has been identified. And closure. If escalated, the frontline takes back ownership of the incident and closes it. To maintain quality and ensure a smooth process, only service desk employees can close incidents. The incident owner should check with the person who reported the incident to confirm that the resolution is satisfactory and that the incident can be closed. That's an interesting point there. That only service desk employees can close incidents. So it seems that would not be a transition you could put out customer facing.
Mm-mm.
That's why there's always a difference between resolve and close.
Interesting.
Resolve says you got it fixed, but you still got to check with the customer. Close says, okay, the customer said it's fixed. We're good to close it.
I just delete it when it comes in. So
Again.
And Alex.
This is why he's Dr. Jira, not Dr. JSM.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So now for our problem management. Well, what the heck is it? It looks past the immediate incident to find and fix the root cause. It aims to prevent problems from happening again, improving overall service quality. An incident may be over once the service is up and running again, but until the underlying causes are addressed, the problem remains. A consistent problem management process can prevent repeat incidents and stop critical incidents from happening in the first place. Kind of like when you have a problem with your communication. If you don't fix your communication, you're just going to continue to have problems.
Yep.
So the problem management process includes 1, problem detection, 2, categorization and prioritization, 3, investigation and diagnosis, 4, create a known error record, 5, create a workaround if necessary, and 6, resolve and close the problem. So we can go below and learn more about each one of those steps. So how do we know if we have a problem? Well, we can proactively find problems so they can be fixed, or identify workarounds before future incidents happen. We can track and assess known problems to keep teams organized and working on the most relevant and high value problems. Investigation and diagnosis includes identifying the underlying contributing causes of the problem and the best course of action for fixing them. We'll create a known error when we know a known error is a problem that has a documented root cause and workaround. Recording this information leads to less downtime if the problem triggers an incident. This is typically stored in a document called a known error database. And creating those workarounds if necessary, because those are a temporary solution for reducing the impact of the problems and keeping them from becoming incidents. Workarounds aren't ideal, but they can limit the business impact and avoid customer-facing incident if the problem can't be easily identified and eliminated. And then we resolve and close the problem. So a closed problem is one that has been eliminated and can no longer cause another incident. That is super high level. Go ahead, Rodney.
Yeah. Something I've always done as part of incident management is after everything's resolved, hold the post-mortem, which nobody but me seems to like the name of, but I'm sorry, that's what it is. And out of the post-mortem becomes I usually spawn the problems that go through this process.
So yeah, so a lot of times your incidents, right, again, as you start to collect that data and you see those repeating patterns, you just go, I think there's a problem.
I usually don't even wait for the repeating pattern. If an incident happens once, I'm start going, okay, what caused this and how do we prevent it from happening again before it becomes a repeating problem?
Yes. And and then the hard decision too sometimes I think is that what value does it bring to fix it? And
there's been times where like there's been times where like, yeah, we could fix it, but that's going to take 200 hours worth of work per person and just not worth it.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes part of the known errors database.
Exactly. Yep. And the workarounds. Okay, so change management, which again, I believe now we are starting to refer to that as change enablement.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. All right. So it minimizes risks and disruptions to IT services while making changes to systems and services. A change is adding, modifying, or removing anything that could have a direct or indirect effect on services. So there are these common, and I'm glad the word was there because I was struggling, the common types of changes. So our standard changes. Standard changes are pre-approved changes that are low risk, performed frequently, and follow a documented process. For example, adding memory or storage are standard changes. Usually we have like an SOP for something like that. And everybody goes, yep, that's how you do it. Carry on and please do it.
Doesn't everyone download their RAM nowadays? I say that like that's not really a thing on VMs.
Normal changes. So they're non-emergency changes that require further review and approval. For example, upgrading to a new content management system is a normal change. It feels like a huge change, but by these classifications, it's still a normal change.
Right. And so in change management or change enablement, the difference between a standard change and a normal change is that standard change has been performed so many times that it's basically built in, and you don't need approval from a CAB, usually a change advisory board. A normal change is still, it's still relatively low risk, but it does come in front of the CAB so that they can approve it. And then now we come to the third type of change, the emergency change.
Yes, and those that arise from unexpected error or threat that need to be addressed immediately. security bulletin. For example, implementing a security patch or resolving a major incident are emergency changes. Yeah,
And-
so go ahead.
No, Sarah, you first.
I was only going to say, getting back to that like idea of that standard changes, something you would probably also have as good candidates for automating. And that's not to say some of these things can't be automated, but you think about, hey, you know, could this thing just run over here and nobody has to worry about it? Chances are that's one of those standard changes.
I was going to say emergency changes in most good change management process usually still have to go through the cab. They just go through after the fact retroactively. To like, hey, we had to do this. We had to do it right now. Here's why we had to do it. But here's what we changed.
Mm-hmm.
So the cab stays informed about these kind of things.
Not always retroactive, but possible to be retroactive. Depends upon your organization.
Mm-hmm.
So the process associated with these, well, it doesn't have to include long reviews and non-technical approvals. Instead, it can focus on automated and collaborative processes between IT and development teams, increasing agility while still effectively managing risk. So we'll go into our change request. So somebody requests a change, includes a note on possible risks, expected implementation, and affected systems. Side note, when you go and create one of those change request types, it's going to encourage you to include, and the forms will include a lot of these fields already on there for you, so you don't even have to worry when you make it. It'll say, hey, you probably want these. All right, a change request review. A change manager or peer reviewer reviews the initial change request. How likely is it to be successful? Are the risks and rewards accurate? Is it worth making? Then we get to the change plan, and the team creates a game plan for the change. They document expected outcomes, resources, timelines, testing requirements, and ways to roll back the change if needed. And then for us to get to change approvals, the appropriate change manager, peer reviewer, or other approver reviews the plan and approves the change. And I want to put like even an and or, because a lot of times it's more than one approval that one of these things might go through. And then our change implementation is the team ships the change, documenting procedures and results along the way. And of course, our closure, the change manager reviews and closes the change. Their report should communicate whether the change was successful, timely, accurately estimated, and within budget.
So one note on this whole process, back in the second step when we talked about the change request review, typically the way that I've seen it is that the team or group that owns that particular asset or service are the ones doing the review. So it gets forwarded to them to take a look at that change request.
Yeah. And something I thought was interesting in here, was there any points on like timing? Or was that just as part of the change plan? Because like timing is another thing that they might be looking at too, right?
There is, and I know that JSM has specific features like the change calendar, where as a JSM project admin or space admin, when you enable the change request, you could use the change calendar to create the change requests directly on the calendar, so that you can use the target start and target end dates to specify when the change is happening. You can also use that change calendar to block out any change requests for any maintenance windows, or to allow during maintenance windows, or to not allow during specific just
Fridays before holidays, like this Friday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right before Labor Day.
Good rule of thumb, especially for IT, every IT person above a certain age knows this. If you make a change on Friday, you should be prepared to work on a Saturday.
Indeed.
Well, we are at time.
Yeah, good spot to call it.
Yeah. So we're going to cover knowledge management and asset and configuration management, and then we'll go through. But
thank y'all for being here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, drop a like, and sign up for the Atlassian Builder Summit.
Exactly. Alex, you going to drop a link for us?
I'm about to. I just need to have
That
it
is if you are watching this before October
22nd.
22nd. Come with Rodney. Give us a great talk.
People say it's a great talk. I think it's just a normal talk.
It'll be the greatest talk ever.
Because Rodney always gives great talks, so of course they're normal. It's like
Rodney's undefeated when it comes to talk on my channel. Like nobody has been able to dethrone Rodney.
I mean, when I give talks in general at events, they tend to go over pretty well. So
Rodney is one key player to have at your event. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.